confirmed that the government will reconfirm Beaches Link is on a pause for some reconsideration and redesign. In regards to the Warringah Freeway upgrade in Western Harbour Tunnel, it is true they were approved, but it is also true that the Western Harbour Tunnel is currently undergoing a redesign at the moment to see how it can be dug under the harbour from Birch Grove across, rather than where it is. So in fact, it is perfectly possible at this time to also pause the Western Harbour And would you make that representation on behalf of this community? It is being looked at because of the environmental concerns raised about it coming across the harbour, which are serious, by doing it by dredging. There is an apt opportunity to review the design. Absolutely, this community would have no doubt about appreciating a Western Harbour Tunnel extra crossing, but if you look back in the government's own documents, not very long ago, 2012, when they first talked about a Western Harbour Tunnel crossing, it was mooted as a possible bus crossing and failed further west of the bridge. It wasn't to land in the same traffic corridor and cause more problems. There is no need for North Sydney to be connected to the Western Harbour crossing. So if you could have that looked at, we absolutely appreciate there are traffic issues. A lot of it becomes because everything comes through this one corridor. And it really does deserve looking at again, particularly with Beaches Link pause. The only traffic throughput that seems to really go there is the M2 throughput, which connects much further up the freeway, towards the Lane Cove Tunnel, in fact. This community gets no benefit out of the Western Harbour Tunnel whatsoever. And there does seem to be enough flexibility within the government's infrastructure project to review and amend things. The various state government projects, metro, motorways and others, have variations and modifications go through the planning system all the time. Yes, it takes work, yes, it costs some money, but it is far less than spending $8 billion plus. Thank you. Could you please ask them to review?
Georgina, thanks. I understand the question. I'm not going to replay it. I mean, I was listening. Could you not see that I was listening? To be fair, of course I was listening. I was taking notes. I'm about to answer the question. I mean, am I... please just give me a fair go. I don't think that's too much to ask at all. The question was a number of elements to it, but basically you were advocating for a pause on Western Harbour Tunnel, recognising that there's a pause on Beaches Link Tunnel. That is not the position of this government. It continues to be the subject of discussions that I have with colleagues, but please recognise this. I am one 6-month-in backbencher in a legislative assembly of 93 members in a government of 46, I think, at last count. The Western Harbour Tunnel, in my view, does have far more merit, and there is a far more significant need for it as compared to Beaches Link Tunnel. I'm not saying that I may never stand up and call for a pause on Western Harbour Tunnel. What I am calling for is for it to be improved and refined. And whether that's putting facilities, buildings underground, or whether that is, as you say, looking at what opportunities there are to improve those works under Sydney Harbour. I'm all for that, absolutely. But I've got to be realistic about it, and I've got to pick my battles as well. So please know, on Western Harbour Tunnel, I am advocating for better, for green space, for buildings to be undergrounded, for as much green space for this community, for other things that I will announce in time. But I'm not able to say to you that it is on pause, as I can say to you. And by the way, it does not please some of my colleagues at all when I say those words, that Beaches Link is on pause. But that is the reality of it. I thank you for the question.
But of course the contract has not been signed, so there is
Yes, I hear you.
Warringah Freeway upgrade
Yep.
is a separate matter,
Yep.
and there are obviously safety issues for streamlining
Correct.
that.
Correct.
We all hate the trees have gone, but rather than keep throwing the baby out with the bathwater, some sort of...
I heard the message, Georgia. Thank you. I appreciate the question.
Hi Tim, I'm John Berry.
Hi John, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm a resident of Cammeray. The Western Harbour Tunnel and Beaches Link tunnels would be very long at 15 kilometres and carry very large volumes of traffic, and the carcinogenic emissions from them would be concentrated in a few locations, one being Cammeray. Tunnels of this length are routinely filtered in other countries as a public health measure. Whilst there might be a legally acceptable level of exposure, the reality is that there is no safe level of exposure to these concentrated emissions. The New South Wales Chief Health Officer, in her advice on the EIS, said that unless every single assumption holds up about traffic modelling, then unfiltered stacks are unacceptable. My experience of other EISs is that they underplay the impact and the risks, which doesn't bode well for our community. Also, it's important to note that electric vehicle uptake in Australia is painfully slow, and tyre wear produces 2,000 times more particulate pollution, and that's not going to go away. At up to $20 billion for the two tunnels, the cost of filtration would be a very small fraction of the cost, and yet the government hasn't sought quotes for the two megastacks of the project at Cammeray and Rozelle. Tim, are you and the state government willing to risk damaging the health of the residents of your electorate with unfiltered emission stacks?
John, I really respect the question. I understand where you're coming from. You and I have talked about this before. So I did touch ever so briefly on filtration and stacks. There is more I need to do in relation to it. I am having substantial discussions within government, with experts. You mentioned the Chief Health Officer. I want to meet with her on it. There's more to do. I know time is ticking by. I'm very conscious of it. I'm extremely conscious of the schools, childcare facilities. This is a real education precinct. I really do understand that. At the same time, and don't read too much into this, the reality is that none of the stacks of any of the tunnels in this city today have filtration. I know that in relation to Sydney Harbour Tunnel, there being a stack right next to St Aloysius, of course at the time people were sounding the alarm. But it hasn't come to pass. It's different, I accept what you say on the distance. North Connects is perhaps a better comparator, and I know that there were people up there at the time who were saying, you're poisoning my children, this is terrible, etc. I get it, but the air quality monitoring up there suggests that in fact the air quality on the back of North Connects has improved, and so the need for filtration has not been made out up there. Now, again, I'm looking at it extremely carefully here. I go through these things with as much detail as, as a former lawyer, as someone who is, I appreciate the sensitivity, the significance, the feeling and understanding in relation to this matter. And I'm sorry I can't give you, a sort of black or white answer right now. I'm not going to rush it. I've got to take every advice. I've got to listen to experts. There's a body within government. There are independent experts. Yes, I'm listening to you, the community too. But I'm afraid I'm not ready to tell you exactly what my position will be because it remains under active consideration. But I understand and I heed the question. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, firstly I'd like to thank our local council for finally representing us and giving us a voice, so thank you to you all. It's fantastic to have a voice in the federal government as well, finally. And Tim, thank you for chatting up. I give you credit for it. Well done.
Happy to do it. I'll do it again in a few months' time.
We'll all be here.
Happy to do it.
I've only got two quick questions.
Sure.
Firstly, you keep referring to the EIS, so I just want to check. Have you read the EIS?
All 11,000 pages of it?
You have?
No, I have not. No, I think I said this last time. I'm going to be straight up with you. No,
So you haven't read it, but you are a lawyer and you're interested in the detail, but you
yeah, but
haven't read it.
I'm not going to get
How
across.
much of it have you read?
A swathe of sections. You're not going to
That are
pin
given to you by the government. Okay. Last question. I'm sorry.
No. Sorry.
I'm quick.
Before you answer the question that you've asked of me, I'll try to answer it.
Okay.
I have not read all 11,000 pages of the EIS. It is a stack of documents, that is about this high. I am going to what I'm understanding to be, advised to be, and what I personally believe to be the most significant sections. Equally, I know there is real cynicism in this community about the EIS, so it's not the only document that is the
interrupt you because
source
a
of
lot
truth.
of people in this room brought together actually to read that EIS because that was dumped on our community as a reasonable document to read. So if you want some really great street cred, have a bit of a read of it and not just the parts that were given to you that were captured.
Well, again, they're not just the parts given to you.
Okay, all right.
Please
It's
afford me that
11,000 pages, great read at bedtime. Have a read because it's affecting all of us. Secondly, just wanted to check, are you a patron of the golf club?
I was asked to be the patron, as had been my predecessor, and I accepted that appointment, yes.
Right, okay. I'd like to keep these things really clear because the reason why there might be a bit of upset, I'm third generation in Cammeray. I really never had any issue with the golf course until they cut the community out of consultation. And then now I have a huge issue with the golf course because we're all part of this. We're all part of this. And I believe is it 160 more trees that are being removed for the golf course with no community consultation?
Well, I think the figure you've heard tonight is the final figure, I'm told.
Of the golf course,
Well,
though.
yes,
But it's not,
including
that's
the golf.
additional that we didn't have to lose, and that is purely for the golf course. That's not for anyone else in this room or anyone else in the community. That is purely for the golf course, and it was decided without the community. So I just want to point that out. So if you want to be transparent and open, please do.
Who gave the golf course a non-disclosure agreement? Was it council or New South Wales government?
I'm afraid I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm washing my hands of it, but the golf course redesign was essentially done before I came into this role. I get where you're coming from, by the way. I heed the message, but please understand this. Please understand this. The golf course, again, has been there since 1906. Many members of that golf club have said to me that basically they feel as though they are under assault and that there is a determination on council and in the community to get rid of that golf course. What they have done is to have discussed and negotiated with Transport for New South Wales what is a 40% reduction in the size of that golf course. Having years ago been substantially made smaller by a freeway coming in, it is now much smaller again, and it will be in February next year, I'm told, a short form 9-hole T20.
It doesn't belong to the golf course. It is Crown land, it belongs to the public.
Well, it's Crown land over which
Keep referring to it.
they have a valid instrument.
David Tennant, if someone rented your house, knocked out a few walls and said, I think it looks better, here, have your house back, how would you feel? Or actually, better still say, actually, I've decided I don't like you as my landlord, I'd like them as my landlord. Do you think that's fair?
Well. I'll tell you again. I mean, I made this point before. What I understand the reality to be is this: it is Crown land, state
Which
government
is our land. Which is our land, New South Wales.
It is public land over which the New South Wales government has always. I don't know how I'm going to persuade you of this. The golf course has been there since 1906. Council is the manager/trustee of that land and has stated a position to get rid of the golf course. How would you feel if you were a member of that golf club? How would you feel?
Can we move on to the next question, please?
James, councillors, and by the way, I should have acknowledged Councillor Beregi as well. Apologies, but good to see you, Councillor.
Look, thank you for turning up again. It was here to see you talk in June. I'm convinced you're a fantastic orator, but at this 11th hour, I value actions over oration. My question to June meeting acknowledged many things, but didn't address the major issues of the community and the council. My question to you is, will you commit at the earliest possible convenience to put a notice of motion to State Parliament that the state government will cease negotiating with the golf course over the land, acknowledges that was a mistake and it should have been negotiating with council, who is the manager of the land. Second, that the conditions allowing the parliamentary secretary for the requirement of 2 trees replacement for every one and for no net land loss be removed, so that they must be placed in the area where they are lost. And thirdly, that this tax will be filtered. Can you commit to that and putting that to the motion to the floor so that the entirety of New South Wales can know exactly how to vote at the upcoming election?
Look, I appreciate you want from me a strict black or white on this. I've dealt with the filtration question. I'm not going to repeat myself. You've heard what I've had to say about that. On the golf course, look, there was a golf course. There's been a golf course since 1906. There's a golf course that's going to continue. It's a substantially smaller golf course. Is it open to the public? Yes. Can you go and join the golf club? Yes. Can you get a round of golf? Yes. Can you walk your dog? Yes. Can you walk around it, jog around it? Yes. I don't really sort of see what the big issue is here, unless there's a view that says there ought not be a golf course, or let's build, something else, or let's make it natural bushland, as some people have said to me it should be. I don't really sort of understand what the agenda is. The golf course tree replacement, just briefly, and then I'll come back to you. The golf course tree issue was, of course, part of the design to ensure that there are fairways and it's a functional golf course. Again, it is 40% smaller than it used to be. Yeah, as between the landowner and the lessee. I mean, is that not the normal? Is that not the normal arrangement? Sorry, I don't.
Yes or no? Negotiation. Can it be acknowledged that it was incorrect to negotiate with the lessee, who has at least, I think, for maybe another 18 or 24 months? It may well be renewed. There's no plan at council, despite what you say, to remove the golf course. There is no plan at all to do that I've been involved in.
Well, the club will be very heartened to hear that, I'm sure.
I'm sure they will be delighted, but what we would be delighted for is if you acknowledge, through a notice of motion to Parliament, that it was incorrect to negotiate with the leaseholder of the land, who is only concerned about their golf course, not concerned about the entire environment of that piece of land.
Well, look, again, I mean, all of this happened before. All of this happened. I'll answer the question as I see fit, but thank you. I mean, I appreciate the free advice. James, all of this happened before I sat in this role. Do I believe that it ought to have been more open, more consultative, more inclusive of people and community? Absolutely, I do. But do I think that it's got to a bad place in which what was bigger golf course is now smaller golf course? What was publicly accessible remains publicly accessible. Yes, there are 160 fewer trees, but there will be 320 planted. I don't see. I get the frustration as to process. I do, but in the end, it's about outcomes, isn't it? And I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing that the golf course lives on. And has indeed made the many concessions it has made. I mean, as a business, it's basically gone to the wall.
Can you ensure to ensure that the trees and that the open space land will be placed at the site and not at the discretion?
I've said so. It's a strict condition, 500 metres, and I'm not sure. I mean, I heard the suggestion that the planning secretary can sign off on that. Those conditions were made by the planning minister. Can I just finish? If the minister has made the conditions, I struggle to say, I'm going to check this obviously, and I will do so tomorrow, but the notion that what was made to be a ministerial condition can be varied or undone by the secretary of the department, that does not sound right to me. I don't think that is actually the case, but I'm happy to be corrected if wrong. Of course, yes. Would I accept that the planning secretary should revoke or change ministerial decisions? No, I would not. I would not.
The next question is a petition of consent.
19.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Hi, sorry, my name's Susie Bessel. Hi,
How are you,
Tim.
Susie?
Thank you
Good
for
to
coming
see you.
tonight.
Sure.
I'm here tonight because I'm devastated to see the loss of those trees. Thank you for articulating the benefits of what's planned. I guess I'm not disputing some of those, but what I am here for is because I don't believe that it's not possible to achieve the benefits whilst also reducing tree loss. You know, when I look at some of the information I've seen online, there's planned to be a car park. Well, I don't understand why, like many other car parks throughout the community, there can't be trees around that car park. So I've got two questions for you relating to the trees. The first is, are all of the trees that have been cut down so far and that are, you know, the other 135 that the Mayor mentioned and any others coming in the near future, are they all related just to the Warringah extension, or are some of those also for the Western Harbour Tunnel or the beaches link? And the second question is, have you got power to prevent any further tree loss, or is that just a fait accompli, there's nothing that the community can do about it?
Susie, thanks for your question. I'm not aware of the car park. I'm happy to chat to you afterwards. I've not seen any proposal for some new car park on the site. It may be a temporary car park while it's a work zone, sure, but there's no plan, as far as I'm aware, for any ongoing car park to be built upon that site.
I couldn't find a lot easily available online. There's obviously people here who are much more au fait with the project than I am, but the basic information that's available on there was some releases in 2021, one of which had a map of the car park.
Right. Okay, well, I'll check that out and please, let's you and I talk afterwards. As to the total numbers of trees, if I understood you correctly, you were asking, is the 655 relating to freeway upgrade, Western Harbour Tunnel or Beaches Link? Where does it sort of sit relative to those projects? So that section, that Cammeray Park section, is essentially obviously where you've got the widening of the freeway, the Warringah freeway upgrade. You've got a facilities building, which I've talked about many times tonight, and if Beaches Link goes ahead, you might have two facilities buildings. And I would argue that they both be put underground if Beaches Link is to proceed. So there are others, as the Mayor referred to, and I'll tell you how this went, and it does not reflect well at all upon this government. But I heard myself from North Sydney Council about those additional 135 trees. Now they are along corridors. They are in the islands in the middle. It is not all of the trees. There's a detailed arborist report, tree by tree, line by line, you know, piece by piece, and they say in that report, this tree needs to go for reasons of, you know, utilities. This tree needs to go for reasons of a new sound wall. There are a range of reasons for those trees to go. But as to process, it was frankly appalling. I found out about it as local member through the local council. And we had a good, and I want to acknowledge the Mayor and her team, we had a good, effective discussion about it. And I made it abundantly clear to the Minister's office and to Transport for New South Wales that not one of those trees could come down, at least until there was consultation, openness, the community was aware of where they were, for what reason, when, etc., etc. Otherwise, what would have happened is those works would have been done today. So I understand the Mayor's cynicism, and she would say, well, this is just going to happen anyway. But in terms of process, and it brings me no joy, you know, obviously, these are the authorities that I am frankly needing to lift up and improve, and I am doing my level best to do that. But when they didn't give me any notice of it, I can assure you I had very, very stern words to people in that department. But at least we've been able to achieve a pause on that and some communication and consultation around that, and that is the very least that this community deserves.
Can you give us an idea of what that consultation will look like and the timing?
I'm afraid I haven't seen the detail on it, but nothing's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, if it's got to be genuine consultation, and I will be watching that like a hawk, and seeking to ensure that there is, timely, appropriate, effective engagement with this community.
Sorry, the answer that none of those trees that have been cut down yet and the other 135, none of them are to do with the Northern Beaches Link, is that correct?
No, well,
Yes.
um,
The early works
it's not quite as, I know this sounds cute, but it's not quite as simple as that, because you've got that section adjacent to the freeway where the freeway is getting widened, and you've got potentially 2 facilities buildings, one of which is for Beaches Link. So I'm not going to tell you it's not for Beaches Link. I can't do that. Has any work though commenced for any Beaches Link building? Well, no, but I'm not going to mislead you here. So
I guess just a final request then, you've said that you've called for the Beaches Link piece to be put on hold.
Yes.
Can you extend that
There's
to
no
any
consent
other
for the Beaches Link.
I see where you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the current consent that they're working under is for the Warringah Freeway.
Beaches Link is not
upgrade
approved.
and the Western Harbour Tunnel
Yeah.
early works. The Northern Beaches Link project has no development consent as yet.
Okay, so there could be more trees then for that in addition to what we've got.
Well, I don't imagine where they would be, but I heard the message.
Maybe just a point of clarification. Tim, thank you for mentioning about trees in the middle of the freeway, also some going on those what they call mohawks in the middle.
Yeah.
What people may not realise is the portals, the entrances for the Beaches Link Tunnel were put in the Western Harbour Tunnel approval.
Yes.
They were chopped off the end of the Beaches Link EIS. It stunned everyone when it came out that you went in at a tunnel at Balgowlah or Seaford, popped out at Artarmon for one of the legs, and then disappeared. There was no sign of the link to Cammeray and the freeway because it had all been put into the Warringah Freeway Upgrade Western Harbour Tunnel one. Surely, if the Beaches Link is still way off being decided, could you, on behalf of this community, please ask that the trees which would be taken out on the freeway to deal with those Beaches Link related things not be touched until Beaches Link is decided?
Georgina, that's an entirely fair point, and I'm happy to take it up. I agree with you, and yes, I will do just that.
Because we felt betrayed.
I hear you. I understand.
Granville Delphs, Neutral Bay and Parks Precinct. Tim, under the Minister's condition of approval, there's a specific requirement for the project to result in an increase in usable open space. Usable open space in the general vicinity of the loss. To this point, the project is yet to identify how that usable space will be replaced. So firstly, how has the project been allowed to proceed without a documented plan to comply with the Minister's Condition E157, which is normal commercial practice? Secondly, what audits of pre-existing usable open space have been carried out so that compliance can be measured and demonstrated? And thirdly, the new golf course is going to be partially fenced, will have reduced pedestrian access. The revised layout will result in restricted or no access to non-players. This is a further reduction in usable space to the community and is also a direct result of the critical state significant infrastructure. How is that additional loss going to be replaced? Where is the plan?
Granville, I thank you for that question, and it's an entirely valid one. So I hear you loud and clear. And all I got told on coming to office was that the green space is at Berries Bay, and you've heard me on that. And I, it does not please some of my colleagues, and I'm not saying I'm some hero, but that from my point of view, that is not acceptable. It is not local. It is not connected to this community. So hence I've dealt with that, and let's put that to one side. Has Transport for New South Wales pulled together some other plan? No, they have not. And I am pushing for that. I mean, hence, I've laid out a vision. I've got a petition up online. I've secured a commitment within government to at least pursue a business case for this canopy land bridge, call it what you will, over the freeway. I am serious about that. It is, in my view, probably the only way that we will actually get back green space. And it needs to happen, in my view. It must happen, and I'm absolutely committed to it. I think you asked, have there been any audits? No, I'm not aware of any. But I'm laying out a vision and I'm fighting for it, and that's what a local member should do. Sorry, forgive me, I didn't catch that.
Hi, Councillor Georgia Lamb from North Sydney. I'll keep it brief since I can tell that most people want to leave already. But this is a direct question about the obvious health hazards it's going to be creating. As a lawyer, how do you intend to avoid or mitigate direct responsibility of creating major health hazards around North Sydney's main schools, including for primary school students of 4 years old?
I heard the question. I'm a lawyer too, right? And I see what you're doing. I totally get it. I will obviously come to a position on this question of air quality and filtration. I think I've made that abundantly clear tonight. I'm not going to be rushed, but it matters. I know that it matters. I respect that. I understand that. I've taken every meeting of anyone in this community who wants to come and talk to me about it, and likewise I've spoken to many experts and many more to come. I'm sorry I can't give you a black and white answer on that, but please know I am actively pursuing it, working upon it, and we'll have more to say. You will know exactly where I stand on that issue between now and the election.
Thanks, Tim. Councillor William, thanks very much for coming tonight, and for all our speakers, the Mayor and others, and for our community. I guess whilst I am opposed to all of the projects, I want to focus on the canopy issue that you suggest. How do you think that can be progressed in terms of a scoping and a costing, and what specific ideas would you have around that?
Well, the first thing I'd say is get behind it. I addressed a Willoughby South Progress Association meeting last night, and there were some people there who, without naming them, but basically they said, oh, this is never going to happen, it's going to cost billions, and you're just, misleading us. Now, that is not true. It is not going to cost billions. This is not some thought bubble. This is a serious proposition. I've secured commitments within government. There's a petition up online. I'd encourage all of you to sign that petition. Make your voices heard. If you want additional green space in this community, please help me to fight for it for you. It matters. I completely understand. And, I've had a look. I'm no expert on these matters. I'm a lawyer, not some sort of engineer or town planner. But in other parts of the world, this has happened, and has happened very successfully. And I heard before, how freeways have been replaced by, parklands and so on. Yes, that has happened, but that's because the freeways have been put underground. So, there's a big one in Dusseldorf in Germany. I saw online the other day, Dusseldorf in Germany. There's this image of what used to be an eight-lane freeway, and then, 30 odd years later, all you see is green space. But that's because the road's underground. So, I'm committed to the project, and I'd seek your support. And please sign the petition. Give me your feedback. Give me your thoughts. Talk to people. I'm out talking to anyone who will listen on the topic. Sporting clubs. People who walk, jog, run, whatever the, recreational activity or interest in public open green space, we all, I think, want to see this happen, and it's our best chance to make it happen. So please get behind it. Thank you.
Hi Tim, I'm Chris Olding, I live in Cremorne. I'll just give you it's a very quick question. After listening to tonight's filibuster, what seems to have come across is that you've admitted that there have been many mistakes in the planning and the consultation phases in particular. If we're making a shambles of the planning and the consultation, how do we hope to deliver something that's going to be any good?
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I heard the message. I can't change anything of the past. Of course, I wish there are elements here that I could, but I'm realistic about that. All I can do is listen, consult and stand up and represent this community and to fight for better within government, to get Transport for New South Wales, to get ministers, to get colleagues, to get people across.
But doesn't that fit in with what the council is saying, which is this is the ideal time to stop, take stock, look at those mistakes. There's already a redesign going on at the moment anyway. Let's stop, let's take a look, let's see what needs to be done to why press ahead when it's so clearly wrong?
Look, it's not quite that simple, I'm afraid, because you've got a freeway that actually really does need works done. The freeway upgrade works really.
I'm not suggesting stopping the Riga freeway widening. That's already approved. Yep. So that's out. I'm not talking about that.
Well, Western Harbour Tunnel's already approved as well. I mean, there's.
Only a portion.
Well, no, the whole of Western Harbour Tunnel is approved. That was approved in January 2021. The only tunnel that's not approved is Beaches Link. They're two distinct tunnels. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim, I'm Jonathan Page, Dr. Jonathan Page. I'm a
good to see you, Doctor.
Yeah, we've had a good session ourselves. I've got to say though, there's a bit about the Monty Python about all of this. And, when I'm thinking about this golf course, I'm reminded of the Dead Parrot sketch. I'm just wondering how much further before we declare that whole green space finally dead. But anyway, from the medical point of view, I wish to speak from the medical point of view to the people that are not otherwise represented, and that is to reveal the great psychological impact on so many people because of the way that this barbaric project has been perpetrated. Now, you've got to go back. People were coming out of COVID. They were distraught and depressed. And I know that from the medical point of view. I've worked in the area for 40 years, I speak to colleagues. And there was a lot of depression. And I remember when this project began, I had 3 patients who were suicidal. They came out of COVID, borderline, and then when this project began, they became more acute and needed extra attention. For every one of those, there are so many others who are distraught and depressed. When I saw those trees come down, I was viscerally upset and still am. And then when I drove past the more recent trees that were cut down on the lower part where the lake's going in, I had to pull over because I was going to throw up. I got out of the car and there were 2 women watching the work and they were both crying. Now the final example I want to give is with a 10-year-old neighbour. Okay, he's 10. Now the kids are not represented by anybody as far as I can tell. Now this kid can't sleep because he's aware that trees produce oxygen. Now when he saw the trees come down, he saw them through his window, he burst into tears. This is serious stuff. Now he thinks there's not enough oxygen and he's waking up with bad dreams. Now I'll tell you one other thing that he mentioned, which very few people mention. He has learnt at school about urban heat islands. Right? That hasn't been mentioned. That's what we're creating on the golf course. So come the next summer, when it's 40 degrees, it will be 45 degrees in that heat island. And that will then diffuse out into the community. No one has taken that into account. I was reminded of it by a 10-year-old who learned it at school. We have to remember the people that are depressed and distressed by what we're doing, and the children. They need to be represented in the halls of power where the decisions are made unilaterally without transparency. The kids and the elderly and the others who are depressed and distressed need to be represented.
Well, thank you, Dr. Page. We spent some time together, as you've acknowledged. I really heed the message about trees. I don't want to repeat myself, but I really do understand. And if there was a way to do the freeway upgrade in such a way that all of those trees could have been saved, well, great. I would have absolutely advocated for that. But I'm afraid it is simply not possible. So the best we can do is to replace those trees with more mature, suitable local species, to make that condition within 500 metres, to deliver the increase in tree canopy, to get on with it ASAP, to make sure this community is consulted as part of that process. And look, I think, can I say here also, there is a need to have some sort of proportionality to it all. I'm afraid I don't have the figures for the North Sydney local government area, but in the Willoughby local government area, there are 300 hectares of open space, green space, bushland, harbour foreshores, etc. This whole site is 15 hectares, and 1.5 hectares, will be lost to infrastructure. But again, you've heard that my commitment is to get that green space back to you as a community, and that's what I'm working on. Now, there are other projects, including the undergrounding of Holterman Street car park in Crow's Nest, the building of Hume Park in Crow's Nest. There are other projects that are actually delivering more green space to this community, and that is a very good thing, and happening on the back of big investments made by this government, and there's more to do. At the same time, there are other pressures. You know, I mean, I did read with interest that North Sydney Council might be building a BMX track in Green Park in Cammeray. Now, are people going to be jumping up and down about trees in relation to that? So I just think we've got to have a sense of proportionality about these things. But again, I really do heed the message. I really do.
I have read the EIS 11,000 pages, and I did find in the medical section that there is apparently an acceptable mortality. In other words, the contractors will do all they can to reduce harm, but they accept that that will not be 100% successful, and some people will die. I think we all need to recognise that.
Yeah, right.
Tim, my name's Tony de Goldrick. I apologise. I'm another lawyer, unfortunately.
We've met before, Tony, in the law. Yep, nice to see you again. Been a while.
Right. Well, Tim, and thanks for having the guts to come here tonight too, because you knew you were walking into a hostile audience. So I did applaud you for fronting up for that.
I'll keep fronting up.
I live in Cammeray Road, 150 metres from the Cammeray golf course. Today I decided to have a closer look at what was going on because there's hoardings and fencing all around it. I walked the full perimeter of the golf course, or the works area. I took photographs, I took videos. I noticed that on a lot of the hoarding along Cammeray Road, it said, and I'm not sure whether there's a state government for euphemisms, but it says Cammeray Golf Course Reconfiguration instead of disfiguration. And I was absolutely shocked at the extent of the development going on there. And I must admit, I should have had a closer look a long time ago. But it is a moonscape. I think you described it as a moonscape. Yep. As I said, I walked the full perimeter, and what I noticed is that there is a very extensive digging going on from west to east, quite a deep trench happening across the fairways. I don't know what that is for exactly, but it's getting very deep. You can just see half a bulldozer when it's in there. If it is to do, and it's in an east-west direction, so I suspect it's to do with the Northern Beaches Tunnel. If that is the case, and the Northern Beaches Tunnel is on hold, and we have an election, state election coming up next year, and if government is changed, it's unlikely to go ahead. Why is that huge trench being dug from west to east across the fairways right now, the Cammeray Golf Course? Do you know about that?
Is that the one down the bottom of the hill? Is that where?
That's right.
Well, that's the new dam. That's where the new dam's going, Tony. Well, look, I'm happy to take it on notice. I mean, it may be there's some drainage works or otherwise. It's certainly not tunnel-related works, but it. No, well, no, I don't. Well, that's. Look, I'm happy to take it on notice, Tony, and happy to chat some more. But those works are to. I hear what you say about configuration, disconfiguration, reconfiguration. I get it, but it is to build a 9-hole golf course, a short-form T20, golf course with a lake relocated, with some drainage. There might be some utilities works underneath. I'm not sure. I'm happy to take it on notice and come back to you. Thank you.
It's Mary Ashton from Nth Sydney Council.
Hi Mary, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And I'm not a lawyer. A few issues. Today I noticed actually on the golf course that there is a huge crane which would normally be put in place for a multi-storey building. So if we're talking about putting these buildings underground, I'd like to know what the crane is there for. Other issue is, I just would like to know if you've walked on the footpath in Ernest Street from the Anzac Primary School to the tennis courts. It's one thing to drive past Ernest Street, but it's really another thing to walk slowly and really take in the carnage that's been happening there over the last few months. And last but not least, just wanted to know that you said you, in Parliament in June, you spoken up about the Northern Beaches link. But have you spoken on the floor of Parliament about advocating for the Lower North Shore for the residents to mitigate impacts for the Warringah Freeway and the tunnels? So, and just as a final note, Singapore is 57 kilometres wide by 27 deep. There's 700 parks and 7 million trees. So, I don't live in Singapore, but it'll be nice.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Mary. As for the crane, I'll get advice and come back to you on that. I'll be honest, I don't know what purpose exactly it's serving, but again, I'm happy to find out and come back to you. Have I walked it? Yes, I have. Indeed, I have. I can confirm that. And I see it. Again, I mean, I didn't mince my words. It's a moonscape. It's a work zone. It's a construction site. I see it. I see it for what it is. But I'm also wanting to help this community to get to what is the future vision for that site, for their role in that future vision for that site, for what it could be. Whether it is parkland, sporting grounds, dog walking tracks, exercise sites. There's a raft of potential uses for it, I think it's easy to be dismissive of this, but what was golf course will become open public green space for a big chunk of that land, and that's going to be the subject of this consultation that I've asked the Minister, written to the Minister, and said, please, let's get on with it. The community needs to be engaged and heard as part of that process. Have I stood up in Parliament in relation to the mitigation of impacts in respect of Western Harbour Tunnel? No, I haven't. I hear you on that. I'll give it all due consideration. There's a lot that I am doing, as I hope I've made out tonight, but I heed your message, and we'll give that all due consideration. And yes, Singapore is a very different place to Sydney, Australia, but I hear what you say. I mean, they have no doubt, as is reflected in their style of government, population and so on, they have gone about their building of a city in a much more planned, coordinated fashion. And look, part of what we are dealing with here, without sort of making excuses, is that the growth of Sydney in all too many instances has been very piecemeal, somewhat unplanned, and lacking in coordination. But we can't change anything of the past. All we can try to do is make it better going forward. So, Mary, thanks for those questions, and I'll come back to you.
So, Jim, my name's Chris Gerrity.
How are you, Chris?
I've been part of this community for over 80 years, and I live in West Street. It's very consoling to hear you talk about what you get and what you're doing and all the letters that you're writing. But look, while I'm listening to you, I've got the feeling that we're sending a Boy Scout in against Team Barrel thugs and cowboys. Can I ask you just this simple question? What's your power base? Who belongs to it? And what do you think you can achieve? It's lovely to hear you talking about what you're doing, but we want results. Are you the person that can deliver those results?
Well, Chris, I'm your, stating the obvious, I'm your local state member of Parliament. I've been elected by the people of Willoughby in a by-election on February 12. There were, beg your pardon? Oh, I am getting answers. I'm getting answers. I didn't say I wasn't getting answers. Don't you worry. I'll be pressing every single colleague of mine for an answer. I'm no sort of walkover, I'm no sop, I'm no robot for this government or my party or anything of the sort. I will stand up and fight for this community and do what I genuinely believe to be right. In the end, the power base is this community. So hence, once again, I would implore you to sign my petition in relation to additional green space. I am one voice in a lower house of the New South Wales Parliament. There are 93 members, of which I am one. Can I get to the Premier, who I've known for 20 years, and say to him, Premier, we've got a real problem? Yes. Have I done that? Yes. Can I get to the Minister for Metropolitan Roads, Natalie Ward, who I've known for a long time, and say to her, Minister, I think we've got major issues here. We need to work through them. Can you help me? Yes. Am I doing that? Yes. There's no question of access to colleagues, of capacity to shape and influence within this government. Please don't doubt my capacity to do that. I will be a bulldog for this community. But it is something I've also got to be realistic about. And I am seeking to and am building where I can every partnership, every alliance, every opportunity to bring stakeholders together to find a way to get on with it. And again, I will have more to say in relation to these projects going forward. There is a significant discussion going on within the government in relation to other elements. And I've given you as much as I can tonight in terms of what I've done, those 11 points, but there is more to do. And I get what you say. And, sometimes, yeah, it can be lonely in public life, but in the end, I've got this community to represent, and I get a lot of encouragement and support and feedback from this community. And I want you to know, whatever your views, however you vote, whatever your standpoint or thinking or otherwise, it's my job to stand up for you. And I am doing that to the very best of my ability. I'm standing before you, humbly submitting myself to you, listening to you, acting on your concerns as best I can. And some of you are sitting there laughing at me, and that is your democratic right to do that. But I can only restate my desire to serve, consult and represent this community.
Okay, 3 more questions.
Hi Tim, my name is Alison Taylor. I'm the Anzac Park Public Schools Nth Sydney Tunnels Coordinator. It's actually quite sad that this role has been required since 2018 when we first heard about the projects. Our children are severely impacted by the project both during and after construction. We requested the land bridge in our 2020 response to the EIS. Our school and indeed our children are already uncomfortably close, about 60 metres from the edge of the playground, to the noise and pollution of the 14-lane wide Warringah Freeway. The expansion of the freeway to include the Western Harbour Tunnel entry and exits will expand the freeway to 18 lanes wide, including on and off ramps. An overpass, putting the ventilation facilities underground, and redirection of the air within this short overpass to the ventilation stack for subsequent pollution distribution would address the green space, but even more importantly for our school community, this would protect our children and the community from the significant surface traffic pollution and instead distribute it over a wide area, not concentrated at the school. We're grateful for your support for this, but my question is, what is the normal practice for getting a commitment from your government? I'm curious about the petition for the land bridge on your website. Why have you put a petition on there? Who's the petition for? Are you petitioning your own government? Or are you just data mining your electorate? On filtration, scientific evidence has overtaken the project. And I'll leave you with this excerpt from a recent World Health Organization Air Quality Forum. Dr. Maria Naira, the WHO Director of Department of Public Health, Environment and Social Determinants of Health, said recently, given the overwhelming evidence of harm from air pollution, any politician who failed to tackle air pollution would be judged harshly by future generations and the law. Politicians cannot say in 10 years from now, when citizens will start to take them to court for the harm they have suffered, that they didn't know, she said. We all know pollution is causing major damage, and we all know it is something we can avoid. Now we need to react collectively and in a very dramatic and urgent way.
Alison, thanks very much for your question, and I appreciate your role for the school. It's a terrific school, and one this government's indeed proud to have built not that long ago, and a terrific school community it is too. And I'm in touch with a number of members of that community, and I really do heed your concerns. So in terms of the land bridge, why am I doing it, and why am I doing it in the way that I'm doing it? I'll tell you exactly. On coming to this role, I was told, well, the additional green space for this community is at Berries Bay, and I said, well, that's just not right. That doesn't stack up. It's not in this community. I think we should put that to one side. So I said to people in government, what are the alternatives? And I basically got told, well, there are none. And I thought to myself, well, something's got to be done. So I spoke to a number of people in the community and a number of people in government. I spoke to ministers, who have held senior portfolios present and past. And I said to them, I would like to see green space over the freeway. It's the widest piece of road anywhere in Australia. I think it's the only way in this vicinity we're going to get back green space. And I said to them, how should I do it? And some of them said to me, well, Tim, you need to build support for it. You've got to get people in your community talking about it. Engaging on it. One of them said to me, Tim, you should put out a petition upon it. So I'm doing just that. I spoke to a minister who said to me, Tim, I think it's a great idea and I'm happy to back you in. Go for your life. I think you're doing the right thing. Other people in Transport for New South Wales have said, oh no, Tim, no, that's not going to work. We're not going to be able to do that. The topography's too hard, or for whatever reason. But I'm doing it in a way that I've been told it ought to be done, in a way that I think is open and upfront, that is making a case, building a case. I spoke to many local sporting club presidents and executives and said, how would you feel about some sporting fields over the freeway? And they said, great, we desperately need sporting fields. We don't have enough in this area. This is very necessary work, and thanks for doing it. And there are people in this room who have signed the petition. And you might have cynicism about me or my motive or otherwise, that's entirely up to you, but just look at what it is that I'm putting forward. It is additional green space in the area for this community, and it is absolutely the right thing to do, and I'm going about it, I believe, in a sensible, reasonable, open and effective manner. So again, I thank you for the question and wish you well. Larissa.
Hi. Larissa Penn, I'm here in the capacity as President of the Narrabeen Progress Association, which our area sends our children to school at Cammeray Public School, that's the catchment, and uses that oval for sport. So our children are highly affected and will be highly affected by the beaches when it goes ahead as well. I'm interested in the public interest test here. You've, just full disclosure, public interest, I am considering running in the next election. So I just wanted to be really upfront about that, but...
I respect that,
Yeah, thanks Tim. And mutual respect here, Tim has met with me several times and listened, but like others in this room, I'm concerned how much traction we're actually achieving. With regards to the public interest, as I told you, Natalie Ward stood up in Parliament at budget estimates last week under oath and made it clear that the Beaches Link is simply a subset of this overall program of works, just as like there were stages of WestConnex, Beaches Link is just the third stage of this program of works. She also said there was additional funding allocated next year to the Beaches Link, and we've seen preliminary conditions of approval appear on the Transport for New South Wales and Department of Planning website. It doesn't appear that that project is on hold. What it appears is that things are proceeding in line with the delays around the Western Harbour Tunnel. I will get to my question. The area, so we add that to, if you go back to the question mark area, Paul, sorry, do you mind going back to that on the screen? So if we look at the EIS, which I have read the sheer majority of, that white area was actually originally going to be where the golf course was reconfigured into. So during community consultation, that was what the community were led to believe. Since then, we had a secret deal, which was under the watch of the patrons of Gladys Berejiklian and Trent Zimmerman with the golf club, who are the lessees of the right-hand side there. And they obviously concocted a deal, or we haven't seen it, the community haven't seen it, we don't know how much it's going to cost. The community don't know the compensation that's already been paid. That white area, is that going to be returned to the community? So is it in the public interest that that has actually been done? Because under the contamination reports that have been recently issued, that land and the land below that's permanently lost to the community has been defined as motorway facilities in the future, which has a massive bearing on the way contamination is being treated on that site, and I have huge concerns about children playing at that oval and contamination. Get to my question. So we add the fact that the beaches link is a subset. We add the fact that actually that permanent land there at the bottom of the screen is being cleared for both the Western Harbour Tunnel and beaches link facilities. And what Georgina said before about the portals being part of previous projects, etc., etc., it's a completely intertwined project, and the works that are happening now are part of the overall whole. Everything has changed. COVID-19, the way we work, the way we travel, and this area is particularly susceptible to changes in work-life travel arrangements. We've had inflation, skill shortages, and we've even seen a new metro be approved, and which will join up to the one that's about to actually open along the same route as the Western Harbour Tunnel. We also have considerable mortgage stress going on and thousands of compulsory acquisitions that will occur, substratum acquisitions that will occur, which will add to that pressure. Why then are we not considering reassessing the business case for this project? That is my key question. You keep saying you're going to look at the beaches linking in, a call for a reassessment, but there is more than ample evidence that this project, the basis of this project, has completely shifted, even to the point where the Premier is saying he's going to close the Cull Expressway if the Western Harbour Tunnel was built, but the premise for the Western Harbour Tunnel was that we needed more cross-harbour capacity. So if you add in the fact that the beaches link is simply a subset of the whole, we don't have an approval, we don't have a costing. We add into the fact that Natalie Ward in budget estimates said they don't know how much the rest of the Western Harbour Tunnel is going to cost, and we add in the secret deals that have been done when we don't know the cost of that. Surely there is a case there to call on the Premier and Planning Minister to get Infrastructure New South Wales to reassess the whole business case for this project, and we're asking you, I'm asking you to make that call.
Thanks, Larissa. So there's a lot in that. Let me try to deal with each of the points as best I can. I mean, I'll start with your final point. I assume that what you're saying is you want me to advocate for a reassessment of the whole project. I think I've tackled that tonight. It may be what you want, ma'am, and I'm hearing you. I'm listening to you. But can I say, I think I have dealt with this. I have tonight called for, and this is no small thing, by the way. I have called for a reassessment of the business case for the Beaches Link Tunnel. I have called for that. The Western Harbour Tunnel and the Warringah Freeway upgrade and Western Harbour Tunnel are, in my view, more justifiable, more urgent and more needed for this city. But what I am doing is pressing ahead with every refinement and improvement that I believe and which the community tells me ought to be made. Now, I'll just touch on a few things, Larissa. You and I have had many conversations and we will continue to, and I really do respect our engagement, and you know I respect you. You said the BLT, the Beaches Link Tunnel, is a subset of a program. Well, it's actually a whole separate approval that the Planning Minister needs to make, which has not been made. The other projects were approved in January 2021. Beaches Link is not approved. It can be, if you like, separated, disconnected from the works, and so please see it for what it is. A project that has not been approved is the subject of a separate process, a separate EIS, and so it goes on. I hear what you say.
Tim, sorry, can we just clarify there? The project by the Metropolitan Roads Minister, with all due respect to you, the Metropolitan Roads Minister, who's the Minister answerable in the budget estimates under oath, said that they are one program of works. And that is very clear. If you look at even the Business Case Infrastructure New South Wales, the review that they have published, they have said once a beaches link is approved, the business case, the cost-benefit ratio will all come under one umbrella. Now, every document you look at in the EIS shows that these are intertwined projects. In fact, I appreciate you're saying that the bus link is an improvement, but that is not something that's going to outweigh the costs of this project. The reason why the Warringah Freeway is being reconfigured is to fit in 2 tunnels worth of traffic and 2 tunnels worth of infrastructure into the Warringah Freeway. That is why it's been reconfigured. And that east-west distribution of traffic, if you're coming from Mosman, from where you currently live, across and you want to get to North Sydney, that is going to be substantially changed, that trip, because it's a north-south distribution of traffic because they've chosen erroneously to put tunnels into one of the busiest corridors in Sydney, into the widest corridor in Australia. If you wanted to relieve congestion, why would you do that, other than to link it to the beaches link, to get it to the northern beaches and open up the northern beaches, essentially? I mean, this is what this project is about. So if you really wanted to solve the congestion issues, bypass the Warringah Freeway, bypass the Anzac Bridge, take it to another corridor that doesn't have the competition of a brand new metro. How can your government possibly justify to the residents of Lismore, who are just waiting for stilts to be put on their houses, spending billions and billions and billions of dollars crossing Sydney Harbour with a public transport option and now a toll road option? How can you justify that? I don't understand.
So Larissa, you said that the metro was not reflected in the EIS in respect of these tunnels. I'm sorry, that. Well, I'm advised that the metro was absolutely conceived of. There were numbers. The modelling is reflected in the EIS. Why would a government build a metro and a roadway? Because that's what the people of this city seek to utilise. That's what people are seeking to go about. Again, I'll just take you through it one more time. 60% of people on the Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Harbour Tunnel are not going into the city. They don't need to go in that direction. They need another crossing of that harbour that is going to connect them up to the major roadway network that exists now in this city, the M4 and the M5 and so on and so forth. And if we don't want to do it, and Larissa, I respect very much that your position is just to stop the tunnels. I get it. But if we're not going to do it, then what's the alternative? Are we just going to do nothing? Are we just going to leave things as they are?
That's nothing what any of these people here have said. We want options. We want real leadership. That's what we want.
Well, look, again, I'm just going to answer the question and say that Beaches Link is a separate exercise in terms of EIS, a separate exercise in terms of approval, which has not been done, a separate exercise in terms of funding. These are big, expensive projects, and Beaches Link is on hold. Western Harbour Tunnel was funded and approved in January 2021, and I'm doing my level best to make it as good as I can for this community. There is more to do. As for Larissa, just briefly, you seem to be saying that Beaches Link is just going to steam ahead. It's not. It has not been approved. The money is not there for it in the budget. Even if the money was there for it in the budget, the government has made it abundantly clear it will not proceed because there are too many other big projects going on, and the market capacity in terms of labour, supply, etc. is such that it cannot proceed. I'm told...
There's no redesign going on for the Warringah Freeway, as someone else said, and the Western Harbour Tunnel. They're intertwined. They're fundamentally intertwined. If the Western Harbour Tunnel goes ahead and you remove the beach
No, Western Harbour Tunnel connects up the northern suburbs to West Connects. Beaches Link connects up the northern suburbs to the northern beaches. So they're going in different directions and serving a different purpose. I know you're trying to say this is all one big shambles, but I'm sorry, I just don't agree with that proposition. I'm sorry, I don't. I think we'll just have to respectfully disagree.
Your government doesn't agree with that. That's what's going on here.
Oh, there is a serious debate inside the government. I'm not going to get into all of that detail.
So
But
our community has been subject to basically your inability as a government of New South Wales to actually sit down and look at the best interest, the public interest.
no, the government's been very clear. The freeway upgrade is going ahead and the Western Harbour Tunnel is going ahead. I am trying to make them better, to bring refinements and improvements for this community, including in relation to green space and undergrounding facilities and so on. Beaches Link is on hold, in part because of the advocacy I have gone about. So that is the picture. I know there's a different agenda, a different political view. I respect it, I get it, and I'm sorry. You and I, Larissa, as you well know, we could go back and forth all night. I'm not sure that that's going to help people here.
To advocate to the Premier and the Planning Minister that Infrastructure New South Wales reassess the whole program of works, the business case, the cost-benefit ratio. Everything has changed. And that is a reasonable thing for the community to ask.
Well,
things... fiscal accountability that your government is supposed to comply with. And you're not demonstrating to this community. Even the microcosm of Cammeray Park is an example of how you're not demonstrating that fiscal accountability to this community and to the public.
Larissa, with all due respect, your solution is to do nothing.
No, it's not.
You are saying to stop the tunnels, full stop. And you are advocating for a public transport solution which experts have dealt with and said is not realistic, is not environmentally realistic, is not affordable, is not wanted by people in the northern beaches, would not be used by people in the northern beaches, etc., etc. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to deal with realities here. I'm trying to reflect the views of this community. I respect that you have a different view. I think to be fair, I've dealt with this question. I'm sorry, we could go on all night, Larissa.
Lucky last question. Sorry, Larissa. Maybe just reply to that one remark. I'm not advocating for nothing. I'm advocating for a reassessment.
No, your position is to stop the tunnels. You want to stop it? That's your whole cause celebre.
You don't need to speak like that. And you can't possibly suggest that if you're saying that my position is not to do anything, is your position seriously to do something in the face of all the evidence against this project?
That's what I've laid out tonight. You've heard my position. I couldn't be more upfront about my position. I'm not going to stand here and say that I think the government should bin this and cancel it forever. I don't think that's right. I truly do not. And I hope I've given you reason to think that. But in the end, Larissa, I'm sorry, we just have a different view. And,
Let's go to the last question.
we can keep arguing till the cows come home. I respect your view and I hope you respect mine.
Thank you. My name is John Hancock. I represent the Wollstonecraft community. I'm the chairman of the precinct. I've read the EIS almost fully. I think I understand it. It is a document that could have been written in my opinion, by a merchant banker to some suspect investor who might be interested in investing a lot of money to get a good return when it privatised. Because the EIS, which defines the problems and the impacts, doesn't address the solutions anyway. It's all been left to the Department of Planning to make some certain conditions which are inadequate. But finally, I'd just like to speak on behalf, not of the lawyers, but of the engineers. Now, engineers are very clever people, but one thing they can't do is build a factory sufficient to pull the existing CO2 out of the air. And that's the challenge. In the IS, it states that by the turn of the century, our CO2 emissions will be exactly double what they are today. And here we are pushing ahead with a program that will add to that problem. Now, we can't do anything about that as an engineering group, but nature can. It's got a factory and it's called trees. Trees pull out the CO2, and making 2-for-1 trees is just simply not enough. What I'd ask you to do is to redouble your efforts to make more and more and more trees available on this project. We just don't have enough.
Thanks, John. Look, I'm all for planting of more trees. I'm happy to look into that, but I don't think 2-for-1 is too bad in the circumstances. I hear what you say. Perhaps we can do better. I'll get advice on that and genuinely will look into it. But I'm all for planting of trees right across this electorate, absolutely. As for CO2 emissions, I hear what you say, but I think, even since the time of the writing of that EIS, I think we actually have come a long, long way. For example, the New South Wales government has said that we will electrify the bus fleet. Now, that project is actively underway. I am chairing an inquiry, in fact, into the making of our public transport system into an emissions-free public transport system. The bus electrification, yeah, because it isn't possible. It isn't actually possible. The original announcement was to electrify the whole fleet by 2030. And it simply is not possible. The commitment now is to do all of the metro fleet by 2035. That will make a significant difference to the bus experience, but yes, to emissions as well, John, a very significant impact. But likewise, trains, ferries and other elements of public transport are moving in that direction. Private vehicles, yes, they are moving in that direction. I think, since the writing of that EIS, we have come a long way, and government policy has moved considerably since that time. So the issue of emissions, is very dynamic, and I think there are significant changes coming. And this government, of which I'm proud to be a part, has done a heck of a lot in that space and will continue to do so. But on trees, it's a great practical measure. I am all for the planting of more trees. And if we can do it on this site, great, let's do it. But there are other sites as well where it can and should happen, and they play an essential role, yes, in our environment and our ecosystem. And John, I thank you for the question.
And just to conclude, the Beaches link is on hold, not stopped.
On hold, yes, that's what I said. That's what I said.
You said it was stopped.
No, Beaches link is on hold. I haven't said I've stopped it. I've not said to anyone it has been stopped.
It's on hold.
It's on a pause, it's on hold, it's on ice.
Is for it, very much for it.
Sorry?
The Minister for Roads is very much for it.
I think the Minister is of that view. Other people in government have a different view, but this is a live discussion which I'm actively contributing to on behalf of this community as strongly as I possibly can. And I think, with all due respect, about as strongly as anyone could in the circumstances. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Thank you everybody for hanging in there. I'd like to thank our speakers tonight, so Paul Walters, Zoe Baker and Tim James. Clearly this is not over, so we will liaise, if that's okay with your office, Tim, to have you back to hear about the progress. And I think you've heard from your constituents, but we're really keen to hear about how you're getting responses and what people are responding to. So, thanks very much, everybody, and have a good night.